So welcome back to Muy Local. We are here with this segment with Richie Vandenberg from Hidden Sea. Richie, thank you for being here with us today.
No, pleasure.
And Richie is a mite from down under, and I've traveled the world and hung out with a lot of Australians, so I always have an affinity for Australians and the accent and everything you crazy people talk about and do. But I love the idea for your company, Hidden Sea, and you're very involved with eliminating plastic from the ocean. But you grew up actually as the child of a family that grew grapes that eventually went to winemaking, correct?
Yeah, no, I'm fourth generation grape grower, would you believe?
Wow.
So there you go. So yeah, it goes a long way back in the family history. And I've got two brothers, and they've both gone back on the farm. But when I was about 16, I wanted to go back on the farm. And Dad said, because I was the eldest, he said, well, all three of you can come back, but you've got to go off and do something else first. And I went off and studied civil environmental engineering down in Melbourne, in the city, at Melbourne University, and I never went back. Both my brothers are back on the farm, but I ended up staying in the city.
Yeah, and then you would be known, if we have any Australians in the audience, they would probably know Richie from his AFL career. So tell us, for the Americans who have no idea what the AFL is, it's the Australian equivalent of the NFL, basically, right?
Yeah, so that's really the next part of the story, which is while I was down studying at uni, I ended up getting drafted into the AFL by a team called Hawthorn. So the AFL in Australia, stands for Australian Rules Football, is the equivalent of the NFL here. It's by far the biggest sport in Australia. It's played at the MCG, holds 100,000 people. We'd regularly play in front of crowds of 50 to 70,000 people throughout a 22-round season. So it's a big deal in Australia. And yeah, I was very fortunate to have a 10-year career.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of an aside, but for people who know how rough Australian rules football is, how many surgeries and broken bones have you had?
Yeah, no, a lot. So I think, what was it? I had about 13 surgeries over a 10-year career. So it is a pretty tough game, and very physical. You're coming at each other from all different angles, and
not a lot of pads either, right?
No, there's no pads.
Yeah,
there's no pads. Look, they've really
crazy.
tidied the game up. I retired back in 2007, and the game's been tidied up a fair bit since then because of there's there can be a lot of ongoing issues with injury if you're not careful.
Sure. So on a day-to-day basis now, when you hop out of bed first thing in the morning, how's the rig holding up?
There's a few little aches and pains that you got to keep an eye on.
I bet.
Yeah. It's funny, as I'm getting older, you're just starting to feel them niggling away.
Yeah.
But you just got to take care of yourself, and I try to do that as best I can, just to make sure that you keep the body in good shape.
So beautiful AFL career, make a lot of money, take some of that money, invest it in vineyards, and here we are with Hidden Sea.
Yep.
And then as part of that, the mission of the company is to help remove plastic from the oceans. And again, from a surfing perspective, I've traveled through Bali and a lot of other third world countries, and when you get to those spots, you often just see the horrible results of plastic pollution. So how did that come about as something that was going to be actually the mission of the company?
Yeah, there's a very long version of that, but I'll shorten it. The beauty of playing an elite sport, it doesn't matter what sort of elite sport you play, is you really learn how to live with purpose. It's all about trying to achieve a higher purpose. That's your mission. So in AFL or in the NFL over here, for example, it's the Super Bowl, but for us it's called the AFL Grand Final. And so you have a collection in a roster, you call them a roster, so you've got a roster of 40 players, all from different walks of life, religions, races, the whole thing, all come together purely because they can play football. And then how do you get that tribe of blokes, in our case, men, to all achieve a certain goal? And that's living my version, or our version, of living with purpose, and that's what a mission is. So when we started the business, we wanted to start a business where we had a real purpose. We were living for something that meant something. So our brand is the Hidden Sea, one wine, one mission to remove plastic from the world's ocean. How did that come about? I touched a little bit on before. I grew up on farms, so you're tied to the environment. Studied environmental engineering, and then before you know it, I'm in an elite sporting environment. So there's the mission element. But then where it sort of gets interesting is we started traveling all over the world, and almost to a T what you just said. You start going into a lot of these third world countries, but not even third world countries. You go to pristine beaches all over the place, and I did a lot of ocean kayaking and actually kite surfed around the world. Like, you just can't believe the amount of plastic is there. And so we just thought, let's try and do something about it, and we started that back in 2020. Our goal was to remove 1 billion plastic bottles from the ocean. And so far in the last 3 years, we've removed over 25 million. And the way we do that is for every bottle of wine we sell, we remove 10 plastic bottles from the ocean. And where we can, we recycle it. But recycling ocean waste plastic is very difficult.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
But amazing, great purpose for the company. And so then obviously you started in Australia and you're here now.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? What was the mindset that we need to go to California or the United States for the next phase of the company? How did that happen?
Justin Moran, who's my business partner, he's actually now based over in Europe, and so we've built a global business. We sell in over 10 countries around the world, and this is one of the most recent ones, the US. But it's also one of the biggest consumer markets and the biggest wine markets in the world. And so we also understand, especially here in California, that Californians care about ocean health.
Right.
But there's big issues over here. You've got the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is just off the coast here. It's the size of Texas. And still, I'm amazed at the amount of Californians that don't really understand it. So we're here to do two things. One, educate people on the issues, and two, do something tangible by actually removing plastic from the ocean. So try and lead from the front a little bit in that respect.
How do you propose to build this brand here?
So the whole ethos of the brand is to build a community of people. So one of the big things that we've just started over here is we're doing an equity crowdfunding. So the idea there is to find thousands of micro investors, so to speak, who believe in what we believe in and want to get on board the journey and be a part of our tribe. So then not only do they demonstrate that they enjoy nice wine, but they also have a passion for the ocean, and we try and bring the two together, and that's how we're trying to build our community, because that's the community that can ultimately help us achieve our goal of removing 1 billion plastic bottles from the ocean.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on and spending time with us today, and best of luck both with your company, growing the brand, and getting plastic out of the ocean. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Nice
Pleasure.
meeting you.
Good on
Take
you.
care.
Cheers.